is Ignacio. Welcome everyone, and after Venkat, it's going to be difficult to beat it, but let's talk about some code. With me, I have Ranky, also that is going to help me in order to do some codes and testing. So let's go through. And by the way, I'm going to talk about things or concepts that Venkat mentioned about, but I am going to put two things together. The first one is going to be about open source, and then the connection with artificial intelligence. So what do I do? It's very simple. I do basically understand the code behind the products that we produce at Red Hat, and we target or we talk to mainly developers, people writing code, but also platform engineers. We call platform engineers developers. These are the people that need to create the code that developers will use in order to run their own code. So probably you know that Red Hat is known as the best contributor in terms of contributions into open source. So we see a lot of open source, and definitely what we do with our products is we take open source ideas, a bit of what Venkat was talking about. We have a number of people creating open source communities, and then what we do is we take those pieces of code and we create our own versions, enterprise grade of the code that those open source communities are bringing up, and then we offer that code also to the community. So what is the connection between that and AI? We see a lot of similarities because in AI, what we find now is that there are also a lot of open source projects that they are starting. In fact, it's a complete mess. I will go through that mess today in order to understand, okay, what are the pieces of mess that we have today and how we can start using those messy pieces in order to start creating our own products. What is the connection between those two things? And by the way, if you think that you are not going to be impacted, think twice. Okay, today, maybe you are not using artificial intelligence in your projects, but definitely Gartner believes that 80% of the projects, 80% of the applications that are running today will use some kind of AI. Think about maybe you write applications for hospitals. Think about all that knowledge that is running already in the hospital, how you are going to infuse that knowledge into your own applications. So there are several things that we need to talk through and how we can help you. First, we believe that AI is going to be hybrid cloud. Why? For several reasons. The first one is because you are going to train a model and you don't know where are you training the model and where you are going to use the model. Not only that, IDC estimate that 93% of the companies are already using multiple infrastructure clouds. In fact, you think about all the artificial intelligence that we are going to incorporate, all the data that is going to come from the edge devices, and you will need to use your device into public and private clouds. So the first element is you need to be sure that whatever you prepare, it's going to run around different clouds. Second, you need an OS. For that, 90% of the Linux already are using public cloud workloads. So Red Hat Enterprise Linux is our version of Linux that is enterprise grade in order to run your OS. Then the next step is where are you going to run your apps? And we believe that Kubernetes is the platform, the open source platform that is going to run your apps. In fact, I was at KubeCon in Paris a month ago, and at the keynote, Priyanka, the CEO of the CNCF, mentioned that AI is running over Kubernetes. So we believe that Kubernetes is going to be the platform, the open source platform that is going to run all the artificial intelligence models. What we have is OpenShift. And here, OpenShift, what we do is we run OpenShift on top of Linux, and then you have different layers. Depending if you need to use Kubernetes and cluster services, you just use Kubernetes engine. Then if you need to use DevOps services, then you have container platform. And then on top of that, if you need to do advanced management, then you have OpenShift Platform Plus. And all of these you can run across different clouds. So the key question is, you start with open source projects, you run hybrid cloud, you run Linux, you run a platform, but the question is how you infuse artificial intelligence. Let's go through that, and we have a new element that you need to start thinking about. Who are those data engineers, data scientists, and ML engineers, and how we are going to start working with them? Well, everyone have a role. The data engineer is going to prepare and gather the data. Then the data scientists are going to deliver the models. And then the app developer are going to incorporate these models into their applications. And then the IT operations are going to ensure that everything runs. So we open what we call the open source AI new stack. And again, what Venkat was talking about, maybe some of you knows about Linux. Some of you maybe knows about Docker. Some of you even maybe knows about Podman. Some of you will know how to modernize Java applications using Quarkus. Some of you will know about Tecto Argo, but definitely will be very rare that all of you knows about all the different projects, open source projects running across the different stacks. And definitely the layer, the top part of that layer, it's what probably most of you don't know. Unless you are a data scientist and you are starting to work already with PyTorch, using or creating Jupyter notebooks and doing your experimentation and model life cycle with Kubeflow, probably you don't know those layers. But you need to know in order to incorporate, because the layers below are normally what we know about creating the apps. The layers above are normally what they need to know, data scientists, in order to create the AI. So let's see that in action. In the next minutes, Ranky will show how we are going to create an app that is going to incorporate AI. What we are going to see is some images. We are going to feed the model with certain images. In this case, it's going to be a dog, a red hat dog. We are going to incorporate that through Hugging Face. Then we are going to use Stable Diffusion. That is one of the models that we are taking out of Hugging Face. We will incorporate that in our Jupyter notebook. And then we will do the model fine-tuning for doing the testing, incorporating that in the app in order to have the application consuming the model. So let's see in action.
One of the ways in which most of the customers whom we've been speaking to, and over the last 1 year, everybody has been working with some kind of large language models. How many of you have tried out some kind of a large language model over the last 1 year? And how many of you have taken it to production? Very few. So this has been one of the major problems. One of the major problems is there's a hype cycle. Many people are working with a lot of large language proprietary models. But then if you've been taking a close look at what has been released, is there's the open source AI models which are coming out very fast, very rapidly, and they're closing the gap with these large proprietary models. And how many of you are experimenting with any of the open source large language models within your organization? Yeah, quite a bit. So this has been this is something which is going to happen rapidly, and so I saw this hype curve where even airline magazines are speaking about how generative AI is taking over jobs and software engineering roles and many other roles. Definitely there's a hype cycle, but it's the same way in which we have seen it's not the most exciting of the technologies which the enterprises pay. It's the exciting technologies which can be catered to enterprises, and also the most boring of the open source projects are the ones which actually people pay for, right? So what's going to happen over the next few months or few years is a lot of open source projects are going to come, and you're going to experiment with many of these open source projects. So what we've done with OpenShift AI is we have created an enterprise MLOps platform where you can work with your data scientists, ML engineers, along with your application developers, onboard them together and work on your projects and deliver the projects across multi-cloud and also across private and public cloud in a true hybrid setup, right? So in this particular project, what I'll be showing is we'll be taking one of the stable diffusion models out of Hugging Face. We'll train it with our own data. So we want to generate a picture of a dog wearing a red hat, and then we'll try to serve it. So if you take a look at how many of you heard of OpenShift? Cool. That's great. So OpenShift is a Kubernetes, enterprise Kubernetes application platform. It's more like a platform as a service which you can use for making hybrid Kubernetes deployments, and it's the largest used Kubernetes distribution on private clouds. So what we've done is we got this constant requirement saying that, hey, our developers understand the Kubernetes, our developers understand how to do cloud native or Kubernetes native applications, but we want to implement AI within our projects. So this is where what we started doing is we started like Red Hat, most all these projects are open source. So you have this project called Open Data Hub. You can run it on your own Kubernetes clusters also. So what this one does is you get the best of the open source projects where you can build your own data pipeline, you can do your data engineering, model experimenting, and also model serving. So if you go to the dashboard of OpenShift AI, you can click OpenShift AI and just one operator with your existing OpenShift cluster, or you could configure the Kubernetes operator pattern onto for Open Data Hub in order to get this running. Sorry about the resolution. There are certain services which you get out of the box. By far, one of the most popular one with data scientists and ML engineers is Jupyter Notebook. But there are quite a few there are quite a few self-managed or partner serviced applications out here. So this is how the dashboard of OpenShift AI is broken down into. So if you take a look at it, you have the workbenches, you have cluster storage, data connection pipeline, and model service. So workbenches is where you really start working with your projects, where in this particular cluster, we have enabled a Jupyter Notebook. And this is the one which is going where your data scientists are going to work together and serve together. So in a single click, it's going to take from your code. So we use Backstage in order to onboard both the developers and the data scientists working on the same projects onto the same clusters or even external clusters. So we use Backstage as an onboarding tool for onboarding the developers within your team and the data scientists. And then once it's there, Backstage creates the code repos, and also you can mention what kind of models you want to work with within a single template, and you get the whole setup. And this setup is you're going to deploy your models as Kubernetes pods serving on the Kubernetes clusters. So what we've done for this particular experiment is we have created a PyTorch model, and this is going to run out of Jupyter Notebook, and all of this is created with a Backstage template. How many of you are using Backstage within your organization? It's a very good project. It enhances developer productivity and also data science. So what you can do over there is you can configure everything, like say your what kind of data models you want to work with, and I think, and then you can just click it, and out of the box, it's going to take you to the Backstage environment, environment which is provisioned with Backstage. Here we have a Jupyter Hub notebook. So the first thing you want to check while running this project is you want to see if your GPUs are enabled. And then what we're going to do is we're going to use the Hugging Face diffuser model and one of the Google's boosting model in order to accelerate image generation, right? So what we've done is we are going to load a pre-trained model. Think of it as you want to experiment with your code bases with new open source models. You just get the models onto your notebook, and then you run it from there. So what we've done is we're going to do some configuration checks, check if some kind of application is running and the CUDA servers are there and your GPUs are there for your project. And then you want to, like, say, for example, generate an image of a dog. Right. So you're going to train a model which we have got out of Hugging Face, and this one could be the same thing. You could experiment with Olama. You could also experiment with any of the things. So, but I want to train it with this particular data. This is a dog which is wearing a red hat. So what's going to happen is, but it's not the dog which I want to train this data on. So what you have to do is you need to give your model certain pictures of what kind of data you want to train it on. So this is something you're going to work with. So again, you're going to check your GPU recommendations, and then you're going to start uploading the images of your dog back to the stable diffusion model. And again, you're going to do some configurations and all of this. So here what you're doing is you're kind of uploading your images, training it against a stable diffusion model, and then you're going to connect your data object stores and data stores onto the cluster. So what you're going to do, if you take a look at here, we are going to give the instance images of our particular model back to the stable diffusion model, and we are going to use one of the Google's Dream Booth technique in order to train the model. So this is something what we would be doing. But while doing like this data, it might take about 20 minutes for us to train the model. What you can also do over here is if you have complicated steps for your model, you could also create a pipeline of what you want to do. And like say, download the data, fine tune the model and export the model into one of the popular formats. Like we are going to do it in ONNX format, but you can export the model into various formats. All you have to do is do a pipeline run. Once you start this pipeline, so this one runs a model serving pipeline with Kubeflow and also with Tecton in the backend for the continuous delivery of these models. So we can check over there, but what we can do is we can also check one of the previously deployed model over here. So what it's doing is it's going to download your data, fine tune the data, generate the samples, upload the images, and also export it to ONNX format and upload it back. So once you have trained the data, you want this one to serve continuously. So the K-serve is also built in into OpenShift AI, where you can create, where you can deploy your models and also connect your applications with, like say gRPC, in order to deploy this model. So what we've done is once we've created the model, you can serve your model where you can open your pod routes to connect to the model's API interface, and then you can get your application running. So this is one of the sample applications where we have created, and we want to take our image Teddy and give it some place where it needs to be. So it's like. So basically, we're training a model of this image. We are running a pipeline, and this pipeline has already been deployed. If you want to see how we do it in depth, you can come down to the Red Hat booth, and we also have a dedicated talk on OpenShift AI. So what we are basically doing is we are going to take models from any of the open source repositories of models, train those models, and then deploy them and serve them to any public cloud or private cloud, or even to external clusters from your development centers. So this is how it's one of the use cases where you can use, but there are quite a few use cases which you can use for credit card fraud detection or various things. Thank you.
Can you put the... This is just the intro. We have prepared around 10 sessions in order to go deeper in all the technologies that we have been going through. Please look at the calendar to attend whatever you consider more relevant. And finally, we are going to be there at the booth in order to show all the different technologies that we have been through. Please, the QR code is also to become a member of the Developer Red Hat program. Thank you so much.